Hey guys, Kevin Downey from Kevin M. Downey and Strategic Advisor at Aptive Index here. Today I want to talk about a really interesting topic, and we deal with this all of the time in my agency when recruiting for sales and business development reps, and that is how do you use Aptive Index, and I'm going to show you in a second, to identify sales candidates who are quite literally wired. They're built to do cold outreach. Okay, so if you're not familiar, as a precursor to this conversation, if you're not familiar, Aptive Index, best psychometric assessment tool on the market, measures cognitive psychology attributes. These are the attributes that our needs and motivation, measure our needs and motivations that drive our decisions and actions. And they don't change. They're stable. They're established when we're teens, and then they're stable over time. This is really important for hiring. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly why it is important and proof that it works by looking at something, a problem in sales that almost everyone in B2B has probably dealt with at some time or other, right? So if you're not familiar with Aptive Index, check it out. If you want to test it, I can give you a link. There's a link on our website, kevinmdowney.com. You can take it. It's going to kick you a PDF. No one else is going to see your results. Well, technically I would. But other than that, no one's going to see it. You get the results. You'll be blown away by the level of accuracy. Okay? So if we want to take a look at, hardwiring and what it measures in sales in particular, we're going to look at 4 different sales roles today. And here's the problem or the conundrum we see in sales recruiting and specifically within B2B. We have a company that comes to us that says they want to hire a sales rep, right? What do they mean by that, right? Well, typically they're looking for someone to do 2 or possibly 3 things in that role. In B2B, they're going to want them to do their own business development. They may want them to, they're obviously going to want them to sell, ultimately get paper, right? And then they may, in fact, have to manage that customer and continually resell to them, right? Fill inventory, go back to them, upsell, cross-sell, all that stuff, okay? And technically speaking, these are 3 different things. They're 3 different wiring patterns. They're 3 different types of profiles. I'm going to show you the difference between the 3 here in a second, but if you want proof that this actually is a problem or a challenge to hire a rep that then can sell, but also do their own outreach, and then also on the back end manage clients in the long term, have you ever looked at, you hire by skills and experience, resume looks glorious, interview goes great. Most salespeople are really good interviewers, especially one-call closers and hunter sales reps. They can engage right away and all that stuff, and they just blow you away in their interview. Their resume looks polished. They've done all these millions of dollars in sales, and they've hit quota. You bring them in, you pay them a boatload of money, but they got a prospect to generate themselves leads, and they don't move the needle. Nothing happens, right? If you're not familiar with that story as a B2B company, you're lucky, because it is a tale as old as time, especially as of late, I guess. And it's almost an epidemic in the United States at this point, right? We're hiring salespeople, right? But we need them to prospect, and they're not the same thing, right? Prospecting is business development is a hardcore marketing effort. So I'm going to show you the difference between these things in Aptive Index as a standard profile, right? So we're going to go through 4. And this is in no particular order. So you got a farmer sales rep, right? So they're establishing a customer base, they're maintaining relationship with that customer base, and they are reselling to them over and over again, cross-selling, upselling, managing them as a customer, whatever, right? Then you have what's more or less common as a one-call closer. So they are not even following up with leads. They're not managing customers ever. They are literally going in on an appointment, or maybe the appointment is coming to them, and their job is to just close. They don't even do follow-up on leads, or very minimal. They've got one opportunity to engage a lead, a prospect, not an appointment. This is common in like in-home residential sales, let's say windows. Right? And they're going in and they're doing one presentation. They got to get paper, and that's it. They don't have another shot at it in all likelihood. They might get one more opportunity. It might be 2 calls, but for the most part, it's a 1-call close. Then you have our prototypical hunter sales rep, which is the person, which is what most of our B2B clients hire for, which is someone who's ultimately selling. They're not as much a farmer, but they want that person to do their own business development, their own cold outreach. And I'm going to show you the big problem with hiring for that and why it fails so often here in a second. And finally, you got a hardcore BDR. This is somebody that is built for cold outreach, right? And that is what the topic of the video is. So does a salesperson actually exist who is built to do cold outreach? Yeah, they are, but they're really going to be a BDR profile, and they're going to be a lot stronger and better on the business development side. And then they can turn into a very good salesperson, but at least they're generating leads. And sometimes now we're breaking this up into a couple different positions in companies, obviously. But at least then they're generating leads and getting the opportunity for sales. With a lot of hunters, they're high dollar. You bring them in, they're glorious on paper, but they never pick up the phone. They're never visiting anybody. They're not doing any calls. Okay, so let's look at the profiles and see what we're talking about. So our prototypical hunter sales rep, here you go. So in Aptive Index, if you're not familiar, and you can check out a lot of video and content on their website, we measure 8 drives, 4 primary drives, which is what builds most of our profiles when we're building jobs, right? If you're at Aptive Index clients, you're on the back end, we're building jobs, you're building jobs, you're sending links from about the job specifically to candidates, they're doing the assessment, it matches them up, you get a percentage match, the whole thing. You can ask Aria, the AI, if they're a match for a job. I mean, it's crazy how awesome it is. But right, so we have 4 primary drivers that form what is our primary profile, if you will. Let's take, I'm sorry, I probably should have done this before. Let's take a look at mine really quick. All right, so let's take a look at mine. Okay, so we've got 4 primary drivers. We've got influence, sociability, consistency, and precision. This forms our overall profile. And then we've got 4 standalone attributes, okay? Emotional resonance, pro-social, intensity, and abstraction. All right, you'll notice against their competition some differences here, and this is a more advanced product for sure, but what really sets it apart is the AI, right? And I demo that in another video, but these are the things that form our primary profile, and then we'll use these sometimes to add in to build jobs, right? It depends on the position. So in this case, we got a hunter sales profile, all right? So we're talking pretty high influence, sociability a little, can be a little below the line, and then consistency, precision, again, not dynamic by any stretch, not low, not high, but we got high influence and high intensity, right? That's what we're looking for. Okay. Farmer sales rep. This is a customer manager, right? So you can call them a farmer sales rep. You can call them an account manager. This is real, influence not as important. They're responding to customers. They don't have to be super proactive all of the time. They are very high sociability, maintaining that relationship, right? C&P, not very high. Intensity doesn't have to be super high, but really high pro-social, really high sociability. That's very important in a farmer sales rep type profile. Now we take a look at, and this is just just to show you the extreme. Now you got a one-call close. Now you got high influence and high sociability. They're getting after it. And then emotional resonance really high, intensity really high. We want that for that one-call close. Somebody's got to present and get paper on the spot. They've got no second chances, or very rarely second chances, to achieve that, right? And then finally, we look at, the basic profile of a BDR. We're looking at lower influence, a little above average sociability, but really high consistency, okay? And again, relatively normal precision, okay? Now, when we look at consistency, so what is it if we compare BDR and hunter sales rep, which is like what we get asked to hire a lot for B2B companies. Sometimes some farmer sales reps that are more just account managers, and of course, occasionally one-call closers. But for the most part, it's these 2 things that companies are looking for. So if we look at these 2 things, what do you notice? They're almost dead opposites, right? When we look at INS, right, in particular, IS&C in particular, right, when we're looking at a hardcore hunter sales rep, we've got high I, slightly low S, and lower C, right? BDR, we need somebody that's consistent. We need somebody that's willing to do the same thing day after day after day. right? And they're going to face rejection. They're also going to have fairly low emotional resonance because they're going to be able to brush off the rejection and just do the same thing over and over and over again in a pattern, right? Relatively low influence. They don't need to be driving the bus like a hunter sales rep does, right? They're just going, right? Relatively high intensity as well. And this is why when you look at this is why when you go to hire salespeople and you're looking for that prototypical hunter, and hunter doesn't mean necessarily business development, although that's what everyone wants them to do. They're not the same thing. And it's why so many salespeople fail in B2B. B2B companies are extraordinarily frustrated by this these days. They are going out and hiring skills and experience and resume and all that stuff. And it doesn't mean a hill of beans because we've seen it over and over again with the turnover rates in the United States, particularly in sales, that it doesn't matter what their resume says. It doesn't matter how much they've sold in this kind of need. If you need them to go out and prospect and build a customer base or go out and create customers on their own, they're going to be great when they get in front of a prospect, but they're not built to do cold outreach day after day after day after day. And so companies are getting burnt because they're hiring resume. And obviously the hunter sales reps are glorious, just like one call closers in interview. They come off stupendous. And then you hire them and you give them that big fat check, nothing happens. We see it all of the time and we hear it all of the time. So what you have to do is you have to look at a bit of a hybrid between these two if you want to hire one person, or you separate it out and you hire people that are dedicated business development reps that do the cold outreach, identify decision makers, even as a basic level. They can, they can generate leads, they can schedule appointments, any level of that business development process, so that your salespeople who are built to follow up with leads, right? They can present, they can close, they can sell, they can follow up with leads with great intensity. But they're not built to do that cold outreach day after day after day, making 50 or 100 calls a day. It's not going to happen. And it's why they don't. They're not built for it. That is why Aptive Index, and this is just a microcosmic example of how powerful this software is as a hiring tool. I dig into that in another video, as well as its AI called Aria, which will blow you away because you don't have to just look at the match on the dots or on the pattern, right, on the attributes. You actually have an AI product in here called Aria, which you can ask it about any person. Would they be a good fit for XYZ role? Would Kevin Downey make a good software consultant, a good software sales representative, so on and so forth? And Aria will tell you based upon my profile. Okay, so hopefully that helps you. If you have any questions, reach out to us, kevinmdowney.com. There is a link to take the assessment on our website if you haven't taken it. Also, if you want to get on a call and look at Aptive Index, you've got to check it out. It is so powerful. It'll change the way you hire, not just for sales, but for every position in your organization. Thanks for being here, guys. Best of luck in business, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.